I'm with Elana Heideman from Israel Forever Foundation, and we're talking about the final hostage, Master Sergeant Ran Gvili, who
Want to start over?
coming out of Gaza. What did Ran Gvili do on October the 7th?
When we think of the a number of people who were involved on October 7th, people have learned all different names. And Ran Gvili is going to be one of the names that is going to stick throughout history because he embodies the true spirit of the Jewish nation. He is a young man. He was a young man who was just in advance of a shoulder replacement surgery following an injury from the previous battles that he had been fighting as a member of the Yassam elite police unit. And when he heard the news, he immediately left the hospital, went and got his uniform, and his father begged him not to go. And he said, "How can I leave my friends to fight alone? This is what I am supposed to do." And he put on his uniform and he made his way to the southern border from the community of Meitar, which is where he and his family lived. He made his way there about 40 minutes and was along the way encountering different groups of terrorists. But he found himself at Alumim, fighting off dozens of terrorists. And they say that the footage of the surveillance cameras, the security cameras over the community, they show a fight like in a Hollywood film of this young man who took out number of terrorists before they then murdered him and abducted his body into Gaza. So Ran Gvili was one of the first to rush to the border, and he was the very last to come home. So he stands out for many of us as a symbol, as I said, of the spirit of Israel and the Jewish people, the spirit of our soldiers and our police officers who will put their lives on the line to defend our borders and our citizens and our dignity, our pride as Israel. It's truly a miraculous story to know that Ran Gvili becomes the final hostage of the 251 hostages taken by Hamas, that he has been finally brought home.
So he actually ran into danger.
He absolutely ran straight forward and these are a lot of stories that people aren't hearing, which is just how many common individuals as well as reservist soldiers who are not in the mandatory time of service, but throughout the year are giving hours of and days of their life to be in reserves. During this war, there are soldiers who have served hundreds and hundreds of days of battle as reservists. And so he did, like many others, he rushed to the border to see how he could be of help.
Now, you actually went to his funeral. What was it like? Was it a very moving time?
It was beyond moving. And I think that we have to reflect on the moments before the funeral, which is the discovery of his body. Because the way that Ran Gvili was discovered, he was actually discovered in an area that had been already combed through by the Israel Defense Forces, by our soldiers, in search for hostages and for the destruction of the terror tunnels that Hamas had been building with billions and billions of dollars over the years. So this was in an area that they had searched before, but as we know, Hamas was doing everything possible to eliminate evidence of their crimes, and therefore they had buried Ran Gvili in a cemetery. And unfortunately, the soldiers had to uncover many graves in order to discover the body of Ran Gvili. But the information had come through because of terrorists that had been arrested by Israel and interrogated and provided information that they knew this was where the body was most recently put by the various factions in Gaza that were trying to really control the whole situation by using the hostages' bodies as pawns. And Ran Gvili was certainly one of those examples where they said they had no idea where he was, and then they said they did, and then they didn't, but it was Israel. While Trump, of course, has been instrumental in bringing home the hostages, especially the last group of living hostages, we have to recognize that it was Netanyahu and the IDF who made sure that not a single one would be left behind. And so they took their intelligence information and they combed through this cemetery in the middle of the night. We're hearing stories already now from the soldiers who took part in this action, and it was devastating for many of them. They had to uncover 750 graves. They had to examine 250 bodies. And the 251st body was Ran Gvili, the 251st hostage. There are no coincidences in our world, and God is with us in everything. And here he was with us again. Ran Gvili was discovered exactly in his uniform with his shoes on. He was still intact, fully. This is another miracle because we know how many were not, like the Bibas family, returned as intact bodies. We know of others who only portions of their bodies were buried and still limbs and even heads remain missing. And as once was found, perhaps in the freezer in Gaza, of some innocent Gazan who believes that this is legitimate to hold the body part of a Jew, of an Israeli. So the whole story surrounding, and I'm going to add another miraculous part, which is that 3 days before the discovery of this information, they were all together praying. And we've come across a new month. We're in the new month, the Hebrew month of Shvat, which is a month of renewal, when we recognize the birthday of the trees of the land of Israel. There's all this idea of the Torah portions and the time of year coming into alignment, and they're together for prayer. And the rabbi says, in 3 days, the Ran Gvili will be found. And 3 days later, he was found. So all of these elements come during the week where we read of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our rabbi, being commanded by God that he bring the bones of Joseph, one of our tribal leaders, one of our significant figures in all of Jewish history, and that the bones of Joseph be brought home. So you'll ask about the funeral, but imagine that at the funeral, it's the culmination of all of these incredible things. And then I have to add one more, which is how I learned the name Ran Gvili and why I felt of all of this 2 years of war, I had to be at this funeral. And it was because I have taken many groups, many families to Nova, to the massacre site, the memorial site. And on this place, there is a Torah tent. This tent for the writing of a Torah was written and sponsored for the merit of Ran Gvili and the return of all the hostages. All the hostages were brought home through that merit of that Torah. And Ran Gvili, being the final hostage, was also because of the merit of this Torah, that it kept the awareness in the world that this ad hachatufa acharon, until the last hostage is home. And it kept the awareness of the world of just how we have carried the Torah for 3,000 years, since Moses brought back Joseph's bones to the people and to the land. And you'll also might appreciate knowing that this week, for the first time ever, Jewish prayer is being allowed at Jewish prayer is being allowed at Joseph's tomb. This is a week, this was a week of many pieces coming together. And that funeral, which was attended by thousands, they were in line for kilometer after kilometer of cars, just waiting to pay their respects. People were lining the streets with flags, as we have done every single fallen soldier and fallen individual in this war, every returned hostage to be buried. But this was the culmination of the unity that we have held strong this entire 2 years. This is the last hostage, and everyone was there. President Herzog was there to speak. Prime Minister Netanyahu was there to speak. Speaker of the House, Ohana, was there to speak. The family of Ran Gvili, his absolutely heroic mother and father, were there to speak, his brother and sister, each one sharing not just like a eulogy of the power of this moment, but messages for the future. What are we supposed to take with us as we move on? Because was this an end to October 7th for us? We have not been able to breathe since October 7th. So now we know our soldiers and our police officers, they will continue to fight. And the battles, they are not over. But the October 7th war just perhaps comes to an end with the return home of Ran Gvili. And we are all able to breathe just a little bit easier knowing that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, is this closure for the family? And is this closure for October the 7th, the final hostages
Yeah,
home?
I do believe it is. I think that now we really start a healing process. We also have a challenge ahead of us of the trauma that has been swallowed by so many during these more than 2 years. Now is also going to be a time where we're going to have greater fears of suicide, people who are not capable of coping with what it means to come out of October 7th, now that we can breathe again. There's going to be a lot of imbalance, emotional, mental, and spiritual, because of this end. I, as a Holocaust scholar, have really researched this many years in my life of how did survivors cope with survivorship after the Holocaust. And while October 7th is, there was an October 7th every single day for years during the Holocaust. So there's no comparison at all, other than the idea of Jewish survival and continuation after the Jew hunt. And that's what October 7th was, the siege on Jewish life. It was an attack that targeted every element of our love of life. So while we come to an end, new issues arise, and we need to really embrace each other. And the same unity that held us strong during these 2 years, now we're going to have to fight even harder to make sure that the politics that can be so evil and divisive and painful to deal with, that they do not disintegrate the unity we have, for the fact that October 7th reminded us there are those out to destroy us, and they say it again and again. And no matter what, no matter the pursuits of appeasement, we must believe them, we must stay resolute, and we must train more of our youth and even those living around the world to be more like Ran Gvili and to run to save the Jewish nation and all of the nations of the world from the evil that is Hamas and every other name of jihad in every other face and in every other country. Because now what's happening in Iran, everyone is ignoring it. What's happening in all of the different countries in Sudan, nobody cares, because you cannot blame Israel. So we have to keep our voices loud, even though, yes, the October 7th war may have reached its conclusion. Our battle to exist does not end.
Are former hostages actually sharing stories, horror stories of captivity?
I think that the word horror almost is not sufficient for some of the things that we're learning about. It can be the abuse of the cuneo child, which the father has had to relate through his broken, choked tears, or the abuse of the women that we are now getting more and more evidence of. And unfortunately, we are facing ultimate silence because the women's rights organizations of the world and the children's rights organizations of the world simply do not care. If it is a Jewish child, if it relates to Israel, it's just too complicated because Jewish human rights for some people are just too complicated. And therefore, again, it reminds us of the need to raise our voice. When I listen to these hostages talk about the type of mental as well as physical and sexual abuse that they endured, we can get angry. But when we look at the hostages and look at how they translated their anger and fear, what did they find? They found faith. They found faith. They found God in the tunnels, some have said. They found miracles in moments of misery. They found tiny little ways that they could keep themselves going. And as some of them have said, they knew they were going to make it. They knew they were going to live because they were never going to give up. And even when we look at the beautiful six, the six who were murdered, and of course, now it's being accused that if the Israel Defense Forces had not tried so hard and come so close, maybe they wouldn't have been murdered. I think we have to take the situation and turn it around. And we have to say they will do everything to blame Israel for the deaths. They will do everything, and we have to do everything to reverse and keep the truth. We have to do everything to say, no, you would have killed them no matter what. And every single life killed, whether it was by Israel defending itself or in any situation, every single life taken in Gaza, that is the responsibility of Hamas and Qatar and every pro-Palestinian protester everywhere in the Western world. When Hamas is applauding you, then you must know you're on the wrong side of human history. And now we see that thousands and thousands are being murdered in Iran. There are no protests. There is complete silence. And now we even have evidence of people being murdered. Iran holding their bodies, the IRGC holding their bodies, the Revolutionary Guard holding their bodies ransom. Families are forced to pay, and they're doing this, and they've already started the process, but we have the infiltration, the intelligence to know they're doing it and trying to blame Israel for their deaths. Already Israel becomes the target of blame, even during the weakened, failed Iranian Islamic Guard. So we see that while, as I said, the October 7th war itself might be over, the June 12th war is not. The war with Iran, they continue to threaten. They continue to now take the lives of innocent civilians. There were more killed in 3 days on the streets of Iran by their own government than there were killed in a single year or in the entire war, it seems, of the war between Israel against Hamas. So let us not forget that the stories the hostages share break our hearts to listen to, but we must hear them so that we know the facts, so that the facts can stand against their propaganda and lies, because they know no end to their taqiyya, their effort to lie and tell everyone so that they can conquer the enemy. And their enemy is every infidel, every Jew, every Christian. We have to wake up to it. We have to make sure that we carry that message on.
Sadly, Ran Gvili won't make it back alive, but will the memory of a hero live on?
Always. In this country and amongst our people, Mi Yamalel Gvurot Yisrael, who will tell of the heroism of Israel, is a song that we sing all throughout the year, on Hanukkah, on Pesach. We sing these words because we see heroism amongst our people again and again, doing everything they can to stand up and make sure we will not be demonized, we will not be dehumanized, we will not be murdered by death cults who seek only for our extermination. Heroism takes many forms. Those who are on the front lines and our soldiers in uniform, they are one face that can never, ever be taken advantage of, never be taken for granted. Same with all of the people who have rallied around the families of the hostages and the families of the bereaved. Our whole nation is a nation of heroes. That's one of the songs that has helped us all through this war. It's called Giborei Al, right? The song is called Heroes, and it goes through every teacher we have is a hero. Every mother is a hero. Everyone has a soldier fighting within, whether in uniform or not. And isn't that just the incredible story of the nation of Israel?
Well, now there are many heroes. There were many heroes on October the 7th. Is this a good message to be sending Iran at the moment?
I believe so. I think that Iran is at its cusp. I think that the people of Iran are completely misunderstood by the world. They believe that because it's Iran led by an Islamic caliphate effort, that the people themselves are like that. I think Iran needs to wake up to some of the beauty of Israeli democracy and see what's possible. The Crown Prince, Pahlavi, he is very much a lover of Israel and history, and he stands in the spirit of Cyrus before him as a Persian king that recognizes the destiny that the Jewish people, that the children of Israel play for all of humanity. I think this is precisely what God intends for these events in history to be in juxtaposition with themselves so that the Iranian people can awaken their own freedom. And yes, they're doing it at great expense to their own lives. They are unarmed. They have been shut off from the internet. They have no communication. There is none of the evidence. It will all emerge slowly. I'm sure maybe you've seen it as I have, some of the videos that are coming out. And unfortunately, we know that the Jews of Iran are being targeted specifically. But people are too afraid in the Iranian community, even around the world. Persian Jews are afraid to share the stories that they know of what's happened to their own family because they fear it could turn their own families outside of Iran, like the Persian communities in New York and Jersey and Los Angeles. They're actually afraid to speak of what they know is happening to their families in Iran because it's going to endanger their families in America. Well, this is an ongoing war people don't realize is going to affect more and more people. So I believe that the message to Iran has to be, we will not stand idly by, not if the victims are Israel, not if they are in Saudi Arabia or Sudan or Iraq or anywhere. We must stand with the rights of the people, the good people of the world. And so hopefully Iran will get that message that Israel's heroism, it reaches far and wide.
Amen. What is your prayer finally for the hostages and the hostage families?
I'm going to share my prayer for the hostages with the first story of our distribution of our Healing Hearts Blessing Blankets, which we started to distribute on Hanukkah. And the first 8 hostages of the 8 hostages who received their blankets was Yarden Bibas. And he silently opened up the blanket and he wrapped himself in this very soft blanket made up of all sorts of words of wisdom and encouragement and artwork. It's just so beautiful. And it's been a big part of what we've been doing at Israel Forever for a while. And we gave this blanket and he wrapped himself in it and he just looked up and he just said, Todah, in the most calm, peaceful voice. For me, that was the beginning of my prayer. They are seeking health and healing, and it is taking a long time for them to be able to emerge into a feeling of freedom that they've been given. Much as I mentioned before, survivors after the Holocaust not really feeling a freedom when they were placed by British in detention camps, and they were put in, still on the run from anti-Semites if they tried to go back to their own homes. Again, very drastic differences, but similar treatment when the Jewish victim, is forced to confront their own survivorship. So I hope and I pray for them that they can each be embraced by the blessings of love and support and encouragement that people all over the world are trying to give them, that it wasn't short-lived, that our support for them continues onward, and that they know they did not suffer in vain, that there is a lesson to be learned from their captivity, and that those lessons will be learned by each one of us who inherit their stories. That is my prayer for them and for the many bereaved families who believed that there are nearly 1,000 soldiers who fell during this war, that their sons' lives were also not in vain, and that they were taken because they were fighting for the most important good. And my prayer would be that they receive some sort of closure and an opportunity at this Tu B'Shvat time of year, this new year of the land of Israel's trees, that they should find a new blossom of hope in their heart, because we believe in them and we pray for them, and we're not going to stop just because that war is over. They should stay in our hearts, and we should stay vigilant to never become apathetic, never to become indifferent, and never really to become complacent in what's happening all around the world. Every day we can each do a mitzvah, and every mitzvah we do is a tiny spark of light. That spark of light could ignite the light in someone else's heart and soul, and that is what we need, as many people lighting that light, so that we can bring to the darkness of their captivity, of their trauma, of the fear that grows, and then we can change the world.
What's your website for people who'd like to know more about the work that you do?
IsraelForever.org is our website, and our wealth of resources that we put together for you everywhere in the world, and our social media platforms, which are the place to follow, our mailings that you want to be inspired with in your inbox each week. We do everything we can to make it personal and to help you tap into the potential of that personal connection through great engaging resources. So come and follow us. Let us know if you need anything. Be a part of the Blanket Project. And I'm going to add, to make your voice heard by helping us to declare on May 14th, Declaration Day, because every declaration we make today to affirm history and fact and truth, this is a part of our fight for tomorrow. So come and join us at Israel Forever and be a proud virtual citizen of Israel, making yourself really relevant to the amazing history that we are living today.
Well, Elana, thank you very much for sharing today.
Thank you so much for having me. And everyone, share the story of Ran Gvili with your children. Share the story of the writing of his Torah, and keep learning Torah from wherever you are. Keep doing the mitzvot. And remember, always be a part of the blessing that is Israel. And we will all go with God.